Yesterday there was a dinner at President Shapiro's house that Max and I decided to exit along with some other student activists because we felt that the university, that Northwestern and President Shapiro were not doing enough to address the divestment movement's demands. And I think that this is something that Max and I really care about. We care about student activism and we care about putting a foot down where it's necessary. But at the same time, we do understand the importance of respectful relationships with administrators. As someone who works within environmental justice movements as well as in sustainability, I'm constantly towing that line of needing to interact and respect the same administrators that I actively work against in fossil fuel divestment. And so I think that that's something that while I have not mastered the skill because it's a very difficult skill to manage, I think it's something that I'm constantly striving to improve. And I think honestly an ASG president should be able to engage in student activism where it's necessary.
Having respect for administrators does not mean that we're not afraid to push back. We come into this position having an ambition to change and fundamentally shift the system from what it is. And we know that administrators have generated pushback against some policies that we want to see changed. So while we will respect our administrators and work with them to develop that relationship, we're not afraid to push back where it's necessary to see and do what we want to get done.
Our first priority should be quite clear from our platform that our first priority is serving marginalized students. I think that personally one of the things I would like to advocate for is, I've talked a lot about throughout the past 2 weeks about how being a Black queer student in ASG and how I haven't seen myself in leadership. And so I think that making sure that we have a solid entry of marginalized students into this organization is definitely important. We see the Greek system as a place where marginalized students do exist, and we think that we need to understand that that's a place where we need to offer support. So specifically in our platform, we offer scholarships for Greek students who can't afford to pay for membership for like their dues and things like that. So ensuring that we're acknowledging the intersections of marginalized students and their identities and their involvement on campus is important, and that's something that we reflect in our platform.
Yeah, I think Max's and my entire campaign is centered around changing the culture, changing the way that we talk about marginalization on Northwestern's campus, in ASG and across the entire university as a whole. And I think the culture change here comes from the fact that Northwestern is an oppressive and toxic environment for certain students on campus, and we have not, as a university, really reckoned with that history and tried to reverse it through our organization. As the student government, I think we should be at the forefront of that, and I think that what Max and I would want to do is bring conversations about the ways in which low-income students, people of color, LGBTQ+ students, gender non-conforming students, first-generation students, undocumented students, etc., are not included in our organization and are not included at Northwestern, but the ways in which we really need to prioritize this and reconcile that we have historically underserved these populations. And so I think that's the culture shift that we would want to bring about, and integrating those conversations into every single thing we do as an organization, and using that as a priority to shape our administration so that we can undo the harm that we have done as the student government.
To me personally, if we're looking at a cultural shift that we want to see on this campus, is I think, especially in the last few weeks of just campaigning per se, but also as someone who's been involved in a number of different student groups, as well as communities, I think Northwestern students do a tremendously great job of factioning themselves. And it's unfortunate that we're so good at this. We constantly sit here and try to say that we're either X or we're Y or we're part of this community and therefore we can't be a part of that community. And that to me is inherently an issue. We don't work well together and we don't prioritize collaboration. So if we're talking about a cultural shift, something that I hope is coming apparent through the platform that Archie and I are presenting to you, is that collaboration is at the core of a successful university, in my opinion. The biggest differentiating factor between Archie and I and our opponents is that we don't settle for just one issue. I think that our platform provides students of all... Okay. So, to reiterate, our vision for Northwestern since day one, before we even started this campaign, has been to make sure that every single student on this campus is having the best possible Northwestern experience.
Please stop appropriating our slogan. I think that the biggest difference between our campaigns is that you say that you haven't changed your messaging. Max and I have been there when you've been speaking at residence halls and Greek houses, and you haven't mentioned any words about social justice or marginalized students on campus. I think we talk about issues with a systemic look. We talk about issues as they intersect across campus, and marginalized students are an incredibly important part of our platform, and I think that we're being mocked here as well. I think there's hurt feelings on both sides. And I think that it's illogical and short-sighted to say that our platform does not touch every student on this campus. We talk about mental health, we talk about financial accessibility, we talk about student groups, we talk about the issues that you guys talk about, and we just talk about them with a different lens, and I don't think that you can fault us for that.
I have been at all of these events that you guys have been at, and I've spoken about the same things everywhere, whereas I'm actively aware of the fact that different messages have been sent to different communities when you guys have not gone on and spoken. But I don't want to make this about who's saying what and where. What I want to say and what I want to drive home here is that the platform that we have, the vision that we have for ASG is that it needs to serve every single student in this campus, and our platform is doing just that.